What's going on, everybody? JHow here, and in this Heroes of the Storm video, we're going to talk about Sylvanas, my #1 played hero, and I'm going to talk about some of the most effective ways you can use this hero to control the game, to control the enemy team's rotation, and talk about how dominant she can be, or how weak she can be. So without further ado, let's get into the talents. At level 1, there's really only one option: Overflowing Quiver. When a nearby enemy minion dies, a free Withering Fire is shot. This cannot hit heroes. This is fantastic for clearing minion waves. Once you get to level 7, you can basically insta-clear a wave. It's incredible, the synergy that this has. Yes, it doesn't do anything towards heroes, but it's very important to control the lanes, and I think it's one of the biggest things for Sylvanas. Dreadful Wake could be one of the most clickbait talents in the game. It sounds amazing, but in all honesty, you always want to save your E for some type of mobility, and you don't want to be using this on the minion waves. Locking them down is great, but you're already clearing them quick enough that it doesn't really matter that much. So do not pick that. It is clickbait. For level 4, again, there's only really one option. That's Lost Soul. Reduce Shadow Dagger's cooldown by 1.25 seconds each time it spreads to a hero. This is one way to really climb up the damage meters if you're on Sylvanas, because at some point you have to team fight. So using this in a team fight is pretty good. You can spread it to a minion, which will inevitably spread it to a hero. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with it to make sure it goes there. It also will go get past that spell shield. Maybe somebody's running spell shield or Nerubian armor if you're a Nubarek. Using this on a really short cooldown will proc that without really giving up too much and allowing the rest of your team to do more damage. So there's a lot of things it can do, whether it's damage, whether it's spreading, whether it's just overall clear. It's a really good tool to use, and Lost Soul is the #1 option at level 7. At level 7, we're going to look at Barbed Shot, another one where this is pretty much the only one you want to go with. Withering Fire deals 200% bonus damage to minions, mercenaries, and monsters, which means that now Barbed Shot will help you out on objectives, it will help you clear mercenaries faster, and it will blow up those minions so that you can get that level 1 value even faster. Using Barbed Shot will blow them up, refresh your Withering Fire, and continue to do this bonus damage. And so your wave clear now becomes super impactful. The other talents there, again, they sound cool, they might look good, but Barbed Shot, given that it does damage to minions, mercenaries, and monsters, makes this far more valuable than any other talent at this tier. Level 10, we're going to be looking at Wailing Arrow. You shoot the arrow out, and the key thing for a lot of new players is understanding that you can reactivate it to explode on the path. So you don't necessarily just have to press R and let it go until it explodes. You can reactivate this to explode it for maximum value. Make sure you understand that. Silencing an entire enemy team, if you can land it perfectly, is phenomenal. That silence will do a lot for you and your team. The whole thing about this is that you need to be able to use this at the right time. You don't necessarily want to use this as an opener. Wait till the enemy team starts to collapse. Wait till they start to go in. Or if you're with a team that is diving, wait till your team is on that back line and then use this. Don't use it late, but don't use it early. Find that sweet spot in the middle. Using this to open up is oftentimes not a very good deal, especially because it's on such a long cooldown, so make sure and use this appropriately. Mind Control sounds cool, but unless you have a well-coordinated enemy team, and assuming the other enemy team doesn't have Cleanse, or they don't have Crystal Aegis, it's just way too hard to get the value out of this. It is fun, but again, the fact that you now become a stationary target, you become a priority for the enemy team. Wailing Arrow, just way too good to pass up at 10. When it comes to 13 talents, there's generally a #1 option, and that's going to be Windrunner. Teleporting with Haunting Wave fully recharges Withering Fire. Haunting Wave can be cast a second time for free within 5 seconds after teleporting. So the way that you do this, and let's say you're clearing a mercenary camp, which is one of the good ways to use this, is you can press W, hit Q until you are out of your Withering Fire, E in, make sure you E past them to keep them locked down, reactivate, press Q a lot more times until that's empty, press E again, and then all of a sudden you've now successfully obtained multiple Withering Fires. You're clearing the minion camps, you're keeping them locked down, and this gets infinitely easier to clear mercenaries. The other thing is that with heroes, you want to make sure you have mobility. in the current meta, mobility is a really big deal. So Sylvanas having that mobility with her E, not only 1, but 2. So if you find yourself in danger, you can E out, you can E over walls, you can find different ways to use this and just find a path to safety. This is a really big deal. Will of the Forsaken is kind of a backup option, but Windrunner, just way too strong in the current meta, and overall has been the strong talent for a very long time. At 16, there's a couple of options, but generally your number one option is going to be Cold Embrace to lower the armor of the initial enemy hit. And this is going to be for 2 seconds. Again, if you went the level 4 talent Lost Soul, you'll be able to use this repeatedly, and it's good if your team can follow up. If you're afraid your team doesn't have burst damage or they're not going to follow up, it might not be that impactful. For you, hitting Q near that target, your Withering Fire will actually do quite a bit of damage, so you can use this as your own offensive tool and probably get pretty good value out of it. If you are under pressure and you are worried about the enemy team staying on you in the backline, Evasive Fire is a good backup option. When an enemy is hit with Withering Fire, you gain 10% movement speed for 2 seconds, stacking up to 30%. So you can be a little bit more elusive and move around and adjust your positioning accordingly. So there's different things there. Overwhelming Affliction to slow enemy heroes, again, is not a bad option. So there's a couple of things here, but Cold Embrace is generally going to be your number one. At level 20, Sylvanas' talents here are a little underwhelming. Now, the number one choice generally is Bolt of the Storm. I talked about the necessity for you to have that mobility. Yes, you have the double E, but there's always going to be that, oh my god moment. And Bolt of the Storm is a really good way to say, I got to get out of here no matter what's going on. So it's a really good way to have that extra mobility, have that fallback at level 20. At level 20, if you die, your death timer is so long that things could really snowball out for your team. So making sure that you stay alive is always going to be number one. Deafening Blast for the extra damage, the extra explosion, and it just... Deafening Blast is nice. I think it's a good backup option, but if you're playing more appropriately, everything that you have up until now will allow you to do that damage, allow you to get the effectiveness, but Deafening Blast would be your backup option. Bolt of the Storm kind of being there. So depending on the enemy team, if there's no real threat of you being dove upon, then by all means, Deafening Blast, not a bad second option. All right, let's talk about the abilities, and the first one we're going to talk about is Withering Fire. And the main thing about this is that it's so crucial for Sylvanas players to understand the functionality of this. Shoot the closest enemy for 48 damage, preferring heroes. Now, at first, that just seems quite simple, but when it comes to clearing mercenaries or standing next to a tower, if you're walking up to a gate and you're trying to lock down both towers to make sure you don't take shots, make sure and stand near one. Whichever target you are closest to, your Q will hit that tower. It will keep that locked down. Focus your auto attack on the other tower. Now you have your Q going out on one tower, your auto attack going out on one, and you're going to lock them both down. If you're simply looking to flank and lock down one tower and blow it up with your team, just stand near the bottom and Q and right click till your heart's content. And so that's one way to clear. But if you're looking to clear or lock down multiple towers at once that are in range, stand closest to one and auto attack the other. The same goes if the fort wall is down and you're standing next to the fort itself. Stand next to the fort and auto attack the tower. That way you don't take the added damage. Your team doesn't take that added damage. So you can keep the fort locked down and the tower locked down. It's very important to make sure and understand that that Q will hit the closest one. Take that a little bit further and go to the mercenary camps. If you stand near one of the mercenaries, that Q is going to hit. Use your Q on one, especially if you're on Siege Giants. Use your Q on one, right-click the other one so that you are locking both of them down simultaneously. You can continue to spread your W to do that. Post 13, you can clear almost any mercenary camp pretty quickly. But pre-13, you want to make sure and lock them down to take as little damage as possible, have your team take as little damage as possible, and be the most efficient person at clearing those. So make sure and use that appropriately to make sure and understand how your Q works, especially if there are no heroes around, to lock down the first one, and then rotate your auto attacks around. So if you're at a night camp, use your Q on one, and then rotate your auto attacks around on the other ones to keep them locked down for maximum efficiency. We already talked about Shadow Dagger just a little bit with the Lost Soul talent plus the level 16 vulnerability. And using this basically to lock down a minion wave early on is really how you're going to do it. It also locks down structures, so making sure that you lock down structures as you're walking up to them. Not using your E, but using your W, because you want to save your E for mobility. So using your W or just simply walking up and attacking is going to be the best and most efficient way to lock down structures. It also will spread through structures. It basically spreads through everything. Minions, structures, heroes, mercenaries. It will spread so long as they are close. If you find an enemy there, you can basically apply that. It will move it around to the minion wave. Any good player playing against Sylvanas will make sure they don't stand near that to either spread it to the minion wave or to make sure it doesn't spread to themselves. So using this to try and find ways to spread it to the enemy team or spread it to a minion wave is going to be your #1 use out of this. Outside of that, just understanding the functionality to know that it spreads to anything and everything and learning how to chain it together. If you see an enemy hero walking back towards their gate, simply throw it back there and it will spread towards their gate. Just finding all the small tricks to be able to get maximum value out of this, it makes this a very useful talent and over time will accumulate pretty significantly. And on Haunting Wave, again, I already talked about this pretty much at length. You want to use this for mobility. You don't want to be using this to clear minion waves. It's just way too risky, and then once you've used this, anybody will pounce on you. There's a hyper-aggressive mobile meta right now. You don't want to be using your E to clear minion waves. The only thing you want to use it for post 13 would be to clear mercenary camps. Post level 7, you don't need this to clear minion waves anyways. Using this for mobility simply is going to be the #1 way you want to use this. Do not use this to clear minion waves. It is one of the toughest decisions you can make. If you want to try and confirm a kill with it, that's different. But overall, post 13, you can double Haunting Wave, get a lot of Qs out. Pre 13, everything else will clear the minion waves. Play safe, play smart. There's a lot of really small tips and tricks you'll learn playing Sylvanas over time. This is my #1 played hero, and you'll always pick up something different. Understanding your positioning, understanding how your Q works, understanding where to spread your W, and then understanding how to use your E for escape and mobility is all tricks that you'll learn over time. But this is a good starter to make sure and understand how the Q works and how all the abilities work, and then how they function with the talents. You can also check me out on stream over on Twitch, where I play a lot of Sylvanas games, especially with viewers. So if you're looking to ask more questions or play along, then by all means join that. Find the link in the description below. I appreciate you guys watching as always. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.